Welcome to our channel. I'm Chad, and this is my wife Leslie. Come join us as we try to live more and work less. We could be traveling by sailboat, cruise ship, camper, or even a staycation at our cabin. You just never know. While along the way, we'll definitely play some pickleball and volleyball, and maybe catch a race or two. And we will no doubt be tailgating at a football game near you. So join us and our friends all on our travels. Hey guys, as you can see with the trees behind me, a little bit of color, so we're definitely not in the Bahamas. We're up here at the West Virginia property, and what we decided to do is try to play catch up over the last 3 years before we leave out on season 4. And the video you're going to watch next is our travels from St. Mary's, Georgia at the boatyard, and working our way down to Miami, and then crossing the Gulf Stream and to Great Harbor, down to New Providence, and then we end up in Allen's Key and kind of headed toward the Exumas. So what we'll do over the next 2 videos is what I think is we'll kind of catch up with that first year, and then we'll start making the videos a little bit longer because we didn't video as much in the first year. So hopefully bear with us as we kind of catch up. We didn't quite know this is something we wanted to do, and here we are in year 4, so it finally took 4 years to get to where we decided maybe we'll give it a try and just see. So hope you enjoy it. All right, so like every boat story, it starts in the boatyard, and we are in St. Mary's, Georgia at St. Mary's Boat Services. Everybody just refers to it as Rockies. We just put some fresh bottom paint on the boat, and we'd done a few other projects, and by this time we'd actually sailed the boat from the time that we purchased it back up to Southport, North Carolina, and we had some experience with it inside and offshore. This is just us finishing up a little bottom paint and kind of getting ready to splash. We have a centerboard on our boat, so we needed to do a little work for it. So anyway, getting ready for the travel lift. In the travel lift, they had to put us over the water to work on the centerboard, just because the travel lift would not get high enough to clear the centerboard in the down position. But just needed to do a little work. It had been neglected from the last time we were hauled out. We didn't really do anything for it, and needed some bottom paint. So we sanded, got the barnacles off, epoxied a couple of spots, and got her ready. And then it was time to get in the water. This is always exciting and scary at the same time when you see your investment hanging in the air and swaying at times, but these guys are absolute pros. And I know they're insured, as are we, so I don't lose a lot of sleep over it, but it's still cool to see your boat kind of in the air. There's one picture here where I am actually on the boat, and once they set it down in the water, we just check for leaks, make sure the engine fires, make sure we're pumping water overboard. And again, we had done this once before, so we weren't as new to it. So it was just a good experience. And again, this is a great place to get boat work done. I've heard rumors that they might be sailing, but we'll see. I hope not, because it's a great boatyard. But the views there are gorgeous. The no-see-ums after 3:30, 4 o'clock every day are miserable. But nonetheless, they got us in the water, and it's a little skinny at times, but we headed out the St. Mary's River, and from there, the St. Mary's River meanders us down to Fernandina. Most boats that are deep draft boats will need to have high tide. We've never really had an issue. We've touched bottom once, but it wasn't anything major, so we've always kind of gone in on a rising tide. But this is kind of the course area you see out of St. Mary's, and this is where it's skinny, right here with the blue. They've always done a good job of kind of giving us some charts. You work your way down, and once you get down here, then you've got deep water all the way to the ICW and where the inlet is, and then you just shoot south down to Fernandina. The first time we were here in this anchorage, we grabbed a mooring ball, and that night a 40-knot blow came through, and we watched boats drag through the anchorage. We'll talk about that a little bit later, just because it'll give context to when we got to Sisters Creek. But Leslie's mom was on the boat. It was not the greatest of experiences. It was a little scary as boats drug past us toward the marina, but no harm, no foul. We got up the next morning, and beautiful day. We really enjoy Fernandina. The anchorage is nice. There's mooring balls there if you don't feel comfortable anchoring. The marina's got pretty good facilities. There's restaurants, there's places to walk to. At the time, we still had a car that we didn't drop off until Jacksonville, but you see all kinds of stuff. This guy had a rough day, apparently been beat up in a storm. It had a lot of dock rash, and then you get to see boats like that, and then you get to see vessels like this. It's just a lot of beautiful boats on the water. Some are on land. This guy had a bad day. But while we were there and had a car, we decided to go over to Fort Clinch. Fort Clinch is in Fernandina. The fort was started in 1847, and we just toured it, kind of gave a self-tour, and I didn't even realize there was a fort in Fernandina, but it was an 18-minute drive from the marina. I'm sure you could grab an Uber, but I don't know how you would walk to it. It is on the water, so I don't know if there's a landing to where you can go to the beach, but if you're in Fernandina, it's something great to check out. I'm trying to remember how much it cost, but it wasn't anything wild. There's a campground there, so you can take your RV, but just a really cool spot to visit when you're in Fernandina. So the fort was never used or really even fully completed for combat. It was a military post, but if you look at it, it's in really good condition. Given the fact that it's on the water, it's kind of surprising that it's in such good condition, because it definitely takes a lot of abuse from the wind there. But after we got done with the fort, the next day we left Fernandina and headed south to St. Augustine. It's really not a bad ride. We did leave fairly early and tried to time the tides, but that never seems to work out. As you can see, it's pretty narrow and kind of meanders around. You get a couple of these sounds that always are subject to current and sand shifting, so you just need to be careful, because that's where you're probably going to be more like to hit the bottom. But we made it, and just a lot of beautiful scenery along the water from Fernandina to St. Augustine, and for that matter, all the way down to Miami. The ICW is not our favorite spot, just because it is narrow and you always have to be at the helm. But here we arrived at Sisters Creek. So Sisters Creek does have an anchorage, but it also has a free dock that we've stayed at a couple times. It was slammed full because it was in that cruising season, so we anchored over here. Beautiful spot. And in the distance there, you see Steadfast. You'll hear a lot about Steadfast from our first season. Funny story that I'll tell. So we met Steadfast in the St. Mary's Boatyard. We only met Jim. We did not meet his wife yet. He was doing bottom paint and was going to splash. And apparently he splashed just a couple days after us. But remember me talking about the straight line blow that came through with the front in Fernandina and boats dragging? Well, we were in this anchorage, we thought, by ourselves, because the free dock was full. It was late in the evening. We didn't know anyone else was going to show up. But here comes Steadfast. And by this point, we've already opened a beer, and we're watching the boat approach. And as they sail by, they ask, "Hey, do you mind if we anchor here?" We said, "Absolutely not." Then they asked, "How much anchor do you have out, or anchor chain?" We informed them we had 100 feet out, because we were so paranoid still from the storm last night. We were worried about dragging. And again, we're new at this, and anchoring is something that's intimidating if you haven't done a lot of it. So they later told us that they were like, "Are you serious?" But we did reel in some anchor, and I think we were maybe at 45 or 50 feet. And Steadfast anchored next to us, and I hopped in the dinghy and rowed over and realized that we knew each other from the boatyard, and had a quick conversation. I'm pretty sure we drank some beer with them. And the next morning, they asked if we wanted to buddy boat and continue down, that they were headed to the Bahamas. And this was important for us because we were new. We had never done this part. I delivered boats, and I had a pretty good idea what I was doing, but it was just nice to have someone else that had done it a couple times with you. And Steadfast fit that mold. We had fun talking to them. They're great people, and we hope to cruise with them this season. But Steadfast wanted to leave early so we could ride the tides. So at 5 a.m. we dropped my mother-in-law off at the dock, put her in the car, and sent her on her way. And we left Sisters Creek, crossed the St. Johns River, and continued the Intracoastal Waterway with the goal of getting to St. Augustine. So again, the ditch is the ditch. It's narrow. There's some boat traffic. It just depends on what day of the week you're at, but it's beautiful, but it doesn't even look wide enough in the maps for a boat, but there's plenty of room. And for the most part, there's plenty of depth. We draft 5'2", and here we are approaching St. Augustine, and we went to the St. Augustine Marina and grabbed a mooring ball here. We've been to St. Augustine before and been on a ball, so we had a little bit more experience. Jim and Sherry didn't come all the way to St. Augustine. They'd anchored just north. So the next day we continued from St. Augustine and headed south by ourselves, with Steadfast hoping to catch up with us at a later time. Beautiful from the water. Nighttime is gorgeous. The Christmas lights are beautiful. So here we leave St. Augustine, and again, more narrow in the ditch. Lots of things to look at. But all in all, we knew the route and kind of what we were doing because we had laid tracks here before. We knew not to get off the marked channel because it shallows up quick. So we're just dodging crab pots and get down to Daytona. You see there's several bridges right here, and we've anchored around them. But this time we decided to anchor in this spot called Shady Place. Shady Place, you see, is very low reviews, 3 stars. We've anchored here multiple times and never had an issue. So next morning we leave Shady Place, and again we left early at daybreak just because the days were shorter, so we were just trying to lay down as many miles as we could. And these are long days, you know, we're doing at least 12-hour days, leaving just as the sun came up, and we would anchor just as the sun was going down. It was more like a delivery than cruising at this point, but we approached Titusville. This area right here we love. We still love it. There's manatees everywhere. And that took us to Titusville Marina. This is the NASA Railway Bridge. I've never seen it down in all our time at a ball in Titusville over the last 3 years. Maybe it goes down at some time, but we've never seen it down. So anyway, Titusville is here. It is shallow. The mooring field has plenty of depth. There's no tide, so whatever it is what it is. The marina is nice. The staff is great. We feel like it's very affordable. Fuel prices there, to me, are some of the cheaper fuel prices that we experienced. But we have had great experiences. And what's cool is Kennedy Space Center is over here on Merritt Island, and they shoot a lot of rockets. And we enjoyed watching that. We didn't get to see any on this trip, but we have since then. But you can see all of Kennedy Space Center. Mooring field here, sunset. Balls are easy to pick up. It's a nice little short dinghy ride into the marina. They have a nice dinghy dock. Sometimes it gets a little busy. Great facilities, nice showers, laundry. So anyway, this is where Steadfast meets back up with us. And before we left Titusville, Steadfast was arriving that morning and tied up to us long enough to run in, get a few supplies, and we were off. And you can see them in front of us. If there's any wind at all, Jim's going to put his head sail out, and he sure did here. We had a nice little breeze. Lets us run the diesel a little bit less and save some fuel, and in turn save some money. And we do love sailing. I would just prefer to sail and never motor. But here we are, headed south, making our way to Cape Canaveral. And we left fairly early. You do need to be careful at Cape Canaveral because there are limitations, time restrictions with their bridges and with the lock. So make sure you plan your departure coming into Canaveral or leaving Titusville, either direction, so that you do not mistime those bridges. And we always like to call just to make sure they're functioning, and because you can kind of get stuck in an area that that really doesn't afford you restaurants or grocery or anything. But again, narrow, deep water in the channel. Turn here just before the bridge. and don't cut the corner because it's super shallow. That's why that red hazard sign's there. Super deep throughout this cut. There's a couple restaurants and marinas along here. We didn't this trip because we were headed offshore, but we have tried the marina there a couple times, or the restaurant a couple times, and really good experiences. But here is where you approach the lock. There's the lock. It's easy to go through. Then you got a bridge that really corresponds with the lock, so they kind of time that, which is nice. And then you get into Port Canaveral. Lots of cruise ships, lots of traffic, fishing boats. And for your first time, it can be a little intimidating. This picture's of us approaching the lock. That was intimidating to us. But the marinas are nice. You can get fuel here coming in or on the way out. Again, cruise ships everywhere. This is a super popular port. We were passing the Carnival Liberty as we were leaving out that day. They're much bigger than us, so we definitely give them a wide berth. But there's plenty of room. There's plenty of depth for you to even run outside the channel and stay away from these larger vessels. When we left Port Canaveral, pretty nice sea state as we headed from Canaveral down to Lake Worth. The sea state changed. We kind of had a rough go, and as we approached Lake Worth, it was really rough, and we were going to continue on to Fort Lauderdale. Jim said no, he was headed into Lake Worth. I thought about it for about 5 minutes and realized how miserable we were too, and decided to follow them into Lake Worth, which was a great decision. We came in here, easy anchorage. It's pretty busy in season. We were just there, and the anchorage has been thinned out of a lot of what we call derelicts or dirty butts and a lot of private moorings. But it was a nice spot. Beautiful homes here. The anchorage has pretty good depth. There is a dinghy dock to the south that you can get in. Publix is in walking distance. There's a couple bars and restaurants. So it's just a good spot. And moving forward, even though here we go all the way to Miami before we cross, we will never go south of Lake Worth. The last 2 years we stopped in Lake Worth, and that's where we crossed from there to West End. You'll see that in future videos, but Lake Worth is just a great jumping off point. There's the bridge. Just south of there is where the dinghy docks are, and this is us leaving the next morning, headed out, and this is when you hit what feels like bridge after bridge after bridge. I don't know the exact count. Jim and Sherry actually wrote it down on a piece of paper and gave us the bridge and their opening times, and we just followed them through, which was great, again, because we didn't really get stopped at bridges or have to sit a long time on a sailboat with current. It's just a pain, and we were dealing with a lot of other boat traffic. So from Lake Worth, that's why I'm saying outside is better to me than running the inside down to Fort Lauderdale. But personally, I would prefer to be outside. I understand some people are uncomfortable with it, but here we are kind of getting into Fort Lauderdale. It's finally starting to warm up. So many nice boats down here, but the warmer weather we were definitely happy with because we had been pretty chilly up to this point. We were trying to maybe get rid of some of that white skin, but Fort Lauderdale, we move our way south, and anchorages here are busy, and that's why I really don't love Lauderdale, because we really going into a marina in Lauderdale is expensive, and that's just outside of our budget. And again, the marinas are expensive, so we tried to anchor here first. Then we had these goons blocking the anchorage, so couldn't get in. Just kidding, these guys are great. If you haven't seen their channel, definitely watch Spirit Animal. They're entertaining. They're good sailors. They do so many cool things with the boats. This is the boat they completely renovated, and if you catch up on their videos, I would suggest you binge watch it. It's amazing. They are now on a catamaran that is a hurricane damaged boat, and so I was just joking, but the marina there, or the anchorage there, was kind of tight with a lot of other boats. So we went back up to this location, Sunrise Bay. This was next to a marina. The anchorage was not extremely busy. We just hung out and enjoyed the gorgeous weather. We were waiting on a weather window to go out of Fort Lauderdale to head down to Miami. So you can see there's not many boats here. A lot of room to swing. That's us from Steadfast took a picture for us. It was calm. There were not many wakes. People did pretty good through this section about waking you. So we head off from Lauderdale and on to Miami. So this is the route. It's a really easy route from that anchorage. You just come south, go through a couple bridges. Been through 17th Street Bridge several times on deliveries. So I was comfortable with this area. And the inlet is an easy in and out. We try to time it, obviously, where tide and wind cooperates, but there's traffic, but we've never had an issue getting in and out of there. And the sea state was great. Having Jim help with weather and routing was super helpful, as it kept us from making bad decisions. So again, having a buddy boater with experience, I highly recommend. I understand that maybe not everybody gets along, but for us, it just made everything comfortable, and we were still looking at our own weather, but it was just nice to have someone to bounce it off of. So anyway, here we go. We are offshore at Fort Lauderdale, and Fort Lauderdale to Miami is an easy shot. It's direct. You're not outside much. And then Miami is a busy port as well. Lots of power boats, lots of douchebags. But you can get in here to the cut. We follow Jim in, so we draft the same amount so he could tell us where it was shallow. So here we are at Marine Stadium. This anchorage was nice. It was busy. Here's coming into the cut. The anchorage was nice. It was super busy. It was on a Sunday, so lots of loud music, lots of partying, which is fine. We do our share of that. But we were just going to post up here for one night. We had a weather window to leave the next day. But Miami, the best part is at night, because all the music stops. Everyone left the anchorage because they had to go to work. And the views are gorgeous. Miami at night is beautiful, as you can see right here. We had a nice night's sleep. There were no wakes. So this is the next morning as the sun's trying to come up. Actually at night with the moon. But the next morning looked like that. And we headed out of Miami, just north of Bimini. We don't really want to stop at Bimini. To me, there's too much current. It's shallow. So Great Harbor was the port of entry that we went to. And you can see right here, as for crossing the Gulf Stream, the conditions do not get any better than this. And a lot of people, I think, are in such a hurry they maybe get rushed and they don't wait. If you're new, wait for the perfect weather window. Don't get in a hurry. If you're in a hurry, you're going to hurt yourself or tear up gear. And this just made for a really peaceful ride. We were able to enjoy it. As the sun came up, again, it was starting to get warm. The water in Lauderdale and Miami is pretty nice. It's clear, it's beautiful. But once we worked our way offshore, it really turned into that turquoise blue Bahamas water that you see and really appreciate. Right here, you can just see it's glass, and this is close to Bimini at this point. Just a beautiful day. Had a nice sail. By sail, I mean motor, because it wasn't a breath of air. So a nice ride over. This is probably the calmest we've crossed in our 3 years of doing it. The last 2 years have been a little bit more rough, if you will. But as we gained experience, it was something that we became comfortable with, and we knew our boat could handle it. So we didn't make any bad decisions, but you get more comfortable, so you tend to go in different weather. But go conservative. Right here we are getting rid of some pale skin and trying to get some tan. And this is us arriving in Great Harbor early the next morning, right before sunrise. The marina is where we checked in. We actually take the boat into the dock. There was room for us and Steadfast, and that was awesome because customs, immigration, everything's right there. And again, having a buddy boater, he told us exactly what to do. They'd helped us with our click to clear. It was just like having a mentor or someone just to lead you the way. So it was great. There's a family of manatees that are in the marina, so we stopped to check those guys out for a little while. This marina has pretty good facilities. I think it's nicer now. It was a little bit hurricane damaged when we first went there. I've heard it's a lot nicer. Now we have not been there. We've been to Great Harbor again, but we did not go into the marina. But they do have laundry facilities and I think a little restaurant. But Jim is on someone else's boat, and this is Jim. He can get into anything. So he's on someone else's boat playing with the manatee, and he got one to give him a high five, which is a pretty cool picture. I know I'll see comments, you're not supposed to touch them. I didn't touch them. I didn't mess with them. You can complain to Jim if you want to, but it's still a pretty cool experience. There's an old abandoned resort that we walked around. There was a random car parked on top of it, but here's inside the anchorage. This anchorage is called Bay of Five Pirates. There's a narrow cut that you have to go through to get inside. I mean, it's literally a cut that's been blown out between rock, but there's fuel in there. There's groceries in Great Harbor. To me, the alcohol and food are a little overpriced, but it's a small island, but we didn't really get in the water here. A little bit of boat traffic. It's a little bit grassy, so it's not super clear. So we just kind of anchored here. There's not a ton of room. You can anchor outside and it's fine. We've done that before too. But this was just a great place to position and get in for customs. By this point, we're really enjoying our decision because this is the beach. There's a beach club here. We stopped and had a couple beers. The airport is right by this beach. But the water's gorgeous. This is an anchorage, but you have to be in pretty good conditions, and there's rock on one side, so just check your charts. But we've never anchored over here, but the reviews is what I've read. There's rock over in this area that we're looking at. But the walkway down to the beach is just beautiful. We had a great time. We were in Great Harbor for a while, not a while, but a couple days waiting on the weather window to head down to New Providence. This is Sherry and I getting a picture. Again, look at the water. Unbelievable. So here we are in Great Harbor. We leave, and this is the first time I ever flew a spinnaker. It was up for all about 2 minutes. So then we go through the northwest. Then we go through the Northwest Channel here. We've been through there a couple times. It's intimidating only the first time. Just below Chubb. We've never really stopped at Chubb, but this is the route that we took down to the west end of New Providence. So we're not really in Nassau proper. We're here at, I mean, I don't know if you call it West Bay or Clifton Bay. Either way, the anchorage is nice. It's a little shallow as you get closer to the water. There was plenty of room. Some of the reviews have talked about people getting on your boat or your dinghy being stolen or your dinghy engine, something along those lines. We didn't have an issue. Nothing seemed sketchy. Beautiful homes on the beach. There is a beach that you can go on, and even if someone tells you private, it's only private up to the high water mark. So even on a private island, you can get up. But this spot had a cool beach bar, and I don't have any video or pictures of it, but they have underwater statues that you can snorkel. Super cool, and it's right off the point here. But I will say the water was still extremely cold. I'm not a cold water fan, so I was okay with seeing it and getting out. That's probably why there's no video. But here we are on the beach, just kind of taking it easy at sunset because we were going to leave out the next day. We still were fortunate enough to have decent weather, so we were only there one night. So we leave West Bay, Clifton Bay, whatever you want to call it, and this is our ride south of New Providence. It's intimidating because it looks like a lot of coral head, but most of that's deep. It was not an issue. And we arrived to Allen's Key. So Allen's Key is the home to an actor. And the sign says, "This is not Disney. You are not welcome." And we thought that was hilarious. And that was as close as we got. And we did not venture up onto the high water mark. Do you want to guess who the actor is?
It's Johnny Depp, by the way.
Yeah, the one and only. So we did ride around the other corner, dinging in, because they wanted to show us the iguanas and the birds. And this was something we know the Bahamas is full of iguanas. So we got there early. There were no iguanas because it was still cold. But you see Sherry holding her hand out. They brought blueberries. So if you hold out a blueberry, there are these little birds, and Jim will be mad at me for not knowing the name of the bird. But these birds will literally land on your hand, and they will put their beak in the blueberry and suck the juice out of it. And Leslie couldn't get him to do it at first, but then she finally coerced this little birdie to hop in her hand and eat the blueberry. that was pretty cool. About this time, the iguanas were starting to wake up. It was starting to get warm enough to where they were moving. We had some cilantro left over, so this little guy, he enjoyed his cilantro. These guys can't see, so when you throw food at them, they'll lose it. And that's how you lose a finger, because they don't know what they're biting. But their eyesight is really poor, and there can be food right next to them, and they still can't find it. So this was a cool experience. This was warming us up to the Bahamas. We were really becoming pleased with our decision to get on the boat and head to the Bahamas. It just, what a great experience. And we've done this a couple times. It's always fun to take guests there for the first time. And you can see iguanas and pigs anywhere in the Bahamas. But by now it's warm, and they are everywhere. And they are aggressive at times. Hey, hopefully you enjoyed that. I know we had a great first season, and that was just the start of it. Learned a lot early on before we even got to the Bahamas, thanks to some wonderful buddy boaters. But next week, stay tuned. We'll leave Allen's Key and then head down through the Exuma chain. And depending on what we get to on which island, we will head from there down through Georgetown, and then we go back from Long and Cat and kind of work our way back to Eleuthera and Spanish Wells, and then work our way back to Nassau and then to the States. So we might be able to do that in one video, but it might be 2 videos. So we'll just see. Hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to maybe give us a thumbs up and a like, subscribe, and talk to you soon.